The gun felt cold against Evelyn's ribs, pressed there by the man who swore he'd never let her go. Manhattan's pier stretched dark and empty behind her. No witnesses, no escape. Nolan's voice cracked with familiar obsession. "You really thought you could just leave me?" But she wasn't alone anymore. From the shadows came footsteps that made Nolan's hand shake. Adrian Vale emerged like winter itself, eyes promising violence. "Step away from her." This wasn't a rescue. This was war. Want to know how Evelyn went from hunted to untouchable? Follow this story to the end. Drop a like and comment your city so I can see how far this journey reaches. Let's begin. Evelyn Hart learned to recognize danger by the way it breathed. 3 months ago, she could walk down a street without counting exit routes. She could answer her phone without her stomach dropping. She could sleep through the night without jolting awake at every sound, convinced Nolan had finally found a way past the locks, the distance, the restraining order that wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. Now she knew better. Manhattan was supposed to swallow her whole. 8 million people, endless noise, the kind of anonymity that only existed in cities this size. She'd left Boston with 2 suitcases, a bank account she'd been secretly feeding for 6 months, and a forwarding address she'd given to exactly nobody. The apartment she found in Hell's Kitchen was a 4th-floor walk-up with bars on the windows and a landlord who didn't ask questions as long as the rent cleared on time. Perfect for disappearing, except Nolan Cross didn't believe in disappeared. The first sign came 2 weeks after she'd settled in. A text from an unknown number. "The city suits you. You look good in gray." She'd been wearing a gray coat that morning, had worn it down to the bodega on 9th Avenue, grabbed coffee, walked back. Somewhere in those 12 minutes, he'd seen her. Or someone had seen her for him. The phone went into the trash that afternoon, SIM card bent in half. She bought a burner from a corner store run by a man who barely looked up. It didn't matter. New number, same problem. The messages came slower now, more careful, never threatening enough to take to the police. And she'd tried that route before, knew exactly how seriously they took "he's watching me," without proof of actual harm. Always just intimate enough to remind her that distance was an illusion. Still drinking that terrible hazelnut coffee? Red looks better on you than gray ever did. You changed your route to work. Smart, but predictable. Evelyn stopped sleeping in patterns. Stopped leaving at the same time. Started carrying pepper spray in one pocket and a folding knife in the other. Both bought cash from a store in Queens she'd never visit again. She varied everything. Which subway, which entrance, which street she took home. Some days she walked an extra 40 minutes just to approach her building from a different angle. It was exhausting. It was necessary. It was not enough. Because Nolan wasn't just watching. He was playing. 6 weeks in, she found the photograph slipped under her door. Not mailed. Hand-delivered. It showed her sitting in Washington Square Park, feeding pigeons, completely unaware. The date stamp was from 3 days ago. On the back, in his handwriting, "You deserve better than this loneliness." She moved the dresser against the door that night and didn't move it back. Work became her only anchor. The translation firm in Midtown hired her without checking references too carefully. Freelance contract, remote flexibility, pay decent enough to cover rent and the growing stockpile of security measures she kept buying. Door jammer. Window alarms. A baseball bat she kept beside the bed, even though she'd never swung one in her life. Her supervisor, Carol, was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper questions. "You settling in okay?" she'd asked during Evelyn's second week, voice neutral but gaze deliberate. "Fine, city's big. I like it." "Uh-huh." Carol set down her coffee. "You know, we've got an employee assistance program. Counseling, legal referrals, that kind of thing. Confidential." Evelyn had smiled, kept her voice light. "I'm good. Really." Carol didn't push, but she also didn't look convinced. The problem with running was that it only worked if you kept moving. And Evelyn was tired. Tired of jumping at shadows. Tired of scanning every crowd for Nolan's face. Tired of the way her body stayed tense even when she was alone, like it had forgotten how to relax. Boston felt like another lifetime. The brownstone she'd shared with him. The gallery job she'd loved before he made her quit because he worried about the male artists she worked with. The friends who stopped calling after he made every gathering uncomfortable, every conversation a test of loyalty. She'd been 24 when they met. 26 when she realized the charm had curdled into control. 27 when she understood that love was supposed to feel safe, not like surveillance. 28 when she finally ran. Now, 3 months later and 200 miles away, she was learning that running only put distance between you and the problem. It didn't make the problem stop. October hit New York like a held breath. The air turned sharp, the light went golden, and the streets filled with people who moved like they owned the world. Evelyn envied them. Their certainty, their ease, the way they could just exist without constantly checking behind them. She was walking back from the firm's office on a Thursday afternoon, later than usual because she'd stayed to finish a contract translation. Technical manual, German to English, mind-numbing, but it paid overtime. The subway at 5 p.m. was a crush of bodies and noise. She let herself get swept along, one anonymous face in a river of them. That's when she saw him. Not Nolan. Worse, Marcus Hale. Nolan's college roommate, his best man at the wedding that never happened, the friend who'd sworn Evelyn was overreacting when she'd tried to explain why she was leaving. Marcus, who'd called her dramatic, unstable, cruel for breaking Nolan's heart. Marcus, who was standing on the subway platform at 42nd Street, looking right at her. Their eyes met for half a second. Recognition flared in his face. Surprise first, then something else. Something calculating. Evelyn moved, shoved through the crowd, ignored the complaints, hit the stairs at a near run. She didn't look back. Didn't need to. She could feel his attention like heat on her neck. The street was chaos. Tourist groups, commuters, vendors selling fake designer bags and roasted nuts. She cut left, then right, ducked into a Duane Reade, and straight out the back exit that emptied into an alley. Her heart was slamming against her ribs, breath coming too fast. He'd found her. Or Nolan had sent him to find her. Either way, the illusion of safety had just shattered. She kept moving, no destination in mind, just distance. Turned down streets she didn't recognize, crossed against lights, put as much ground as possible between herself and that subway platform. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't check it. Couldn't. The panic was cold and familiar, flooding her system with adrenaline that had nowhere to go. She'd done everything right. Changed her name on social media, scrubbed her digital footprint, hadn't told anyone where she was going, and it hadn't mattered. She wasn't paying attention. Didn't see the man until she collided with him. The impact was solid, jarring. She stumbled back, apology already forming, and looked up into a face that made her forget how to speak. He was tall, taller than Nolan, broader through the shoulders. Dark hair, dark eyes, a face that looked carved rather than born. Expensive suit, the kind that didn't wrinkle, and an expression of absolute, unreadable calm. "Sorry," Evelyn managed. I didn't see." He was looking at her, not the way men usually looked at women on the street, that sliding assessment. This was different, precise, like he was cataloging something. "You're running," he said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn's throat closed. She stepped back, ready to bolt again, and his hand moved, not toward her, just a small gesture, palm out. "Easy." His voice was low, controlled. "I'm not whoever you think I am. I don't think you're anyone." The words came out sharper than she intended. Fear did that, made her mean. "Excuse me." She tried to move past him. He didn't stop her, didn't touch her, but somehow his presence made leaving feel impossible. "The man on the subway platform," he said quietly. "Brown jacket, glasses. He's the reason you're running." Evelyn froze. The stranger tilted his head slightly, still watching her with that unnerving focus. "You're scared. That's smart. But you're also panicking, and that's dangerous. When you panic, you make mistakes." "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who pays attention." He reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a card. Simple, matte black, embossed lettering, a name and a phone number, nothing else. "If you need help, call." "I don't need—" "You do." He held the card out. When she didn't take it, he set it on top of the newspaper box beside them. "You're being followed, you're terrified, and whatever you're running from found you today. So when you're ready to stop running and start surviving, call that number." Then he walked away. Just like that. Didn't wait for her response, didn't look back. Disappeared into the flow of pedestrians like he'd never been there at all. Evelyn stood there, pulse still racing, and stared at the card. Adrian Vale. No title, no company, just a name and 10 digits. She should leave it. Should walk away, go home, pretend this weird encounter never happened. Instead, she picked up the card and slid it into her pocket. The walk back to her apartment took an hour. She checked behind her every 30 seconds, took 4 unnecessary turns, doubled back twice. By the time she climbed the stairs to her door, her legs were shaking. Inside, she locked everything: door, deadbolt, chain, checked the windows, pulled the curtains. Then she sat on the edge of her bed and finally looked at her phone. 7 missed calls, 3 voicemails, all from the same number she didn't recognize. She deleted them without listening. Her hands were still trembling when she pulled out Adrian Vale's card again. The paper felt heavier than it should, like it carried weight beyond cardstock. When you're ready to stop running and start surviving, what the hell did that even mean? She set the card on her nightstand and lay back, staring at the ceiling. Sleep wasn't coming tonight. It rarely did anymore. Instead, she'd lie here and replay every moment, every mistake, trying to figure out where she'd slipped up, how Marcus had found her, whether Nolan knew yet. The fear was exhausting, but it was also familiar now, almost comfortable in its constancy. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost didn't check, but something made her look. "I saw you today. You look terrified, Ev. You don't have to live like this. Just come home. We can fix this. I love you. Nolan." The words sat on her screen like a stain. That nickname, Ev, that he'd used when they were good, before good turned toxic. The casual presumption that she wanted fixing, that home was anywhere he existed. She deleted the message, blocked the number. Knew it wouldn't matter. He had infinite numbers, infinite patience. Her gaze drifted back to the card. Adrian Vale. Itamin. The next 3 days were a lesson in paranoia. Evelyn stopped going to the office, told Carol she was sick, needed to work remote for a bit. Carol, to her credit, didn't argue, just said, "Take care of yourself," in a tone that suggested she knew exactly what kind of sick this was. The apartment became a cage. Evelyn ordered groceries online, had them delivered, tipped the guy through the app so she didn't have to open the door. She kept the curtains drawn, kept the TV on low for the illusion of normalcy, kept Adrian Vale's card on the nightstand where she could see it. She didn't call, couldn't explain why. Pride, maybe? Or the stubborn belief that she could handle this herself, that asking for help, especially from a stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere and somehow known exactly what she was running from, meant admitting defeat. On the 3rd day, her building's super knocked on her door. "Package," he called through the wood. "Needs a signature." Evelyn hadn't ordered anything. She looked through the peephole. The super, Ray, 60-something, complained about the boiler constantly, stood there holding a flat box. Behind him, the hallway was empty. "Can you leave it?" she called back. "Needs a signature, sorry." She opened the door with the chain still on. Ray held up the box, looking impatient. "Come on, I got 3 more floors." The return address was blank. "Who's it from?" Ray squinted at the label. "No name. Look, you want it or not?" Every instinct screamed, no. But Ray was watching, and refusing a package was weird, and Evelyn was so tired of being weird, of being scared, of living like this. She signed, took the box, closed the door. The box sat on her kitchen counter for 20 minutes before she opened it. Inside was a snow globe, Boston. The skyline rendered in miniature, glitter suspended in liquid. She'd had one exactly like it, kept it on her desk at the gallery, had left it behind when she ran because she'd only grabbed what fit in 2 suitcases. Under the snow globe was a note in Nolan's handwriting. "You left this behind. Thought you might want it back." Funny how small the world is, isn't it? The scream that clawed up her throat came out as something between a sob and a gasp. She backed away from the counter, hit the wall, slid down it. The snow globe sat there, innocuous and horrible, proof that distance meant nothing, that he could reach her anywhere, that she was never safe. Her phone was in her hand before she'd made the conscious decision. She pulled up Adrian Vale's number, stared at it, and this time didn't hesitate. He answered on the 2nd ring. "Ms. Hart." Hearing her name in his voice was startling. "How did you? Caller ID exists. Also, I've been expecting you to call." His tone was even, unsurprised. What happened? He knows where I live. The words tumbled out unsteady. He sent me something How did you know my name? Because I looked into you after we met. That man on the subway platform? Marcus Hale. He works for Nolan Cross, who has a history of harassment and 3 dropped restraining orders across 2 states. You moved to New York 8 weeks ago and have been trying very hard to disappear. A pause. How am I doing so far? Evelyn's hand tightened on the phone. Who the hell are you? Someone who can help, but not over the phone. Are you home? I'm not telling you where. 624 West 46th Street, apartment 4C. He said it calmly, like reciting a grocery list. I can be there in 30 minutes, or you can come to me. Your choice. Her heart was pounding so hard it hurt. This is insane. You're a stranger. You could be worse than what you're already dealing with. His voice shifted, went quieter. Evelyn, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you, but you have to decide if you trust that. I don't trust anyone. Smart. Keep not trusting people. But make an exception just this once, because the alternative is waiting for Nolan to get bored with packages and move on to something worse. She closed her eyes. Hated that he was right. Hated that she was considering this. Hated everything about the past 3 months and the 2 years before that. Where? She asked. He gave her an address in Tribeca, told her to take a car, not the subway, said he'd have someone waiting downstairs. Then he hung up. Evelyn sat on her kitchen floor for another 5 minutes, staring at nothing. Then she stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked out. The building in Tribeca was the kind of place that didn't advertise. No doorman, no obvious signage, just a black glass facade and a single camera above the entrance. Evelyn stood across the street for 3 full minutes, debating whether this was the stupidest thing she'd ever done. Then her phone buzzed. You're stalling. Understandable, but it's cold out, and you're being watched from 2 directions. Come inside. She looked up. Couldn't see where the message had come from. Couldn't see anyone watching, but the certainty in those words made her move. The lobby was marble and steel, minimalist to the point of severe. A woman in a black suit stood by the elevator, 30s, expression neutral. Ms. Hart? Evelyn nodded. This way. The elevator ride was silent. 20 floors, and the woman didn't speak once. When the doors opened, she gestured down a hallway with exactly 1 door at the end. Evelyn walked, knocked. It's open, Adrian's voice called. The penthouse, was nothing like she expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that looked designed rather than bought, art on the walls that was probably worth more than she'd made in her entire life. And in the center of it all, standing with his back to the window, was Adrian Vale. He looked exactly the same as 3 days ago. Same expensive suit, same unreadable expression. But here, in his space, the control felt even more pronounced, like he'd built this environment specifically to contain himself. Thank you for coming, he said. Evelyn stayed by the door. You have 30 seconds to explain how you know everything about me before I leave. Fair. He gestured to a chair. She didn't sit. He didn't push. I run a security consulting firm, private sector, corporate clients mostly, but occasionally individuals. When I saw you on the street, running scared, I recognized the pattern. So I looked into it, found Nolan Cross, found the restraining orders, found the move to New York. It wasn't hard. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest. He moved to a side table, poured 2 glasses of water, set one near her, even though she hadn't asked. You're in danger. Nolan isn't going to stop. He's escalating. Messages, photographs, now packages. Next comes direct contact, then comes violence. You don't know that. I do. I've seen this pattern 100 times. His gaze was steady, clinical. Men like Nolan don't accept loss. They take, and they keep taking until someone makes them stop. Evelyn's throat was tight. And you're offering to make him stop? I'm offering to protect you while we figure out how to make him stop. There's a difference. Why? The question came out raw. You don't know me. Why do you care? For the first time, something shifted in Adrian's expression. Not quite emotion, but close. Let's say I have a vested interest in people who refuse to stay victims. That wasn't an answer, but it also wasn't nothing. Evelyn finally moved, took the water, drank half of it in one go. What do you want in return? Nothing. Bullshit. Nobody does this for free. You're right. Adrian's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. I want you to stop looking over your shoulder every 3 seconds. I want you to sleep through the night. I want Nolan Cross to understand that you're not his anymore, and that continuing to pursue you will cost him more than he's willing to pay. And how exactly do you plan to do that? By being very good at my job. Evelyn set the glass down, looked around the penthouse, at the security camera she'd spotted in the corner, at the phone on the table that probably had more encryption than a government office. What kind of security consulting requires this level of... She gestured vaguely at everything, the kind that deals with people who make problems disappear. He said it calmly, like discussing the weather. I'm not a nice man, Evelyn. I don't do this because I believe in justice or fairness. I do it because I'm very good at solving problems that other people can't. So you're a criminal. I'm a pragmatist. Adrian moved to the window, looked out at the city. The world isn't binary. Good, bad. Those are stories people tell themselves to sleep better. I operate in the space between, and right now you need someone who operates in that space because the law isn't going to save you from Nolan. He was right. She knew he was right. The restraining orders hadn't worked. The police hadn't helped. Moving hadn't stopped it. What do I have to do? She asked quietly. Adrian turned back to face her. Trust me, just for a little while. Let me put resources in place. Let me make you harder to reach. And when Nolan makes his next move, because he will, let me handle it. Handle it how? However necessary. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Evelyn should walk away. Should run, actually, because this man was clearly dangerous in ways that made Nolan look like a child with a tantrum. But she was so tired. Tired of running. Tired of fear. Tired of living in a cage of her own making. Okay, she said. Adrian nodded once. Good. Then we start now. He pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in a language she didn't recognize. When he hung up, he looked at her with something that might have been approval. You're moving out of your apartment tonight. I have a place. Secure, private, fully monitored. You'll stay there until this is resolved. I can't just... You can. Your lease is month to month. Your belongings are minimal. I'll have everything packed and moved by morning. You won't go back there. Evelyn's chest tightened. You're asking me to give up the only space that's mine. I'm asking you to stay alive. Adrian's voice softened, just slightly. That apartment is compromised. Nolan knows where it is, which means it's not safe. This isn't negotiable. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she had some control left. But the snow globe was still sitting on her kitchen counter, and Nolan's note was still burned into her memory, and Adrian was offering something she hadn't had in months, an alternative to fear. Fine, she said. There's one more thing. Adrian moved closer, and for the first time she noticed the scar along his jaw, faint, old, the kind you only saw up close. This arrangement works if you're honest with me. Completely honest. I need to know everywhere you go, everyone you talk to, every detail about Nolan that might matter. No secrets. I don't know you well enough for no secrets. Then get to know me. He held out his hand. Starting now. Evelyn looked at his hand for a long moment. Then, against every screaming instinct, she took it. His grip was firm, warm, certain. Welcome to the other side of running, Adrian said. And just like that, Evelyn Hart's life shifted into territory she didn't recognize and couldn't control. But for the first time in 3 months, she wasn't facing it alone. The car that came for her belongings arrived at 11 p.m., driven by 2 men who didn't introduce themselves and didn't make small talk. Evelyn watched from Adrian's penthouse via a laptop feed as they systematically packed her life into boxes with military efficiency. Every book, every piece of clothing, every random item she'd accumulated in her brief New York existence, cataloged, wrapped, removed. They're careful, she said, watching one of them handle her grandmother's teacup like it might shatter from a hard look. Adrian stood beside her, close enough that she could smell something expensive and understated. Cologne, maybe? Or just the scent of money. I don't hire people who aren't. Who are they? People who understand discretion. He closed the laptop. Your things will be in your new apartment by morning. You should sleep. I don't sleep anymore. You will tonight. The bedroom's through there, bathroom's stocked with whatever you might need. If you're hungry, the kitchen... I'm not staying here. Evelyn turned to face him. You said I'd have my own place. Secure, private. Not your penthouse. Adrian's expression didn't change. The apartment isn't ready yet. Give it 24 hours. So this is temporary. Everything's temporary. He moved toward the hallway, paused. The door locks from the inside. You're safe here. I'll be in the office if you need anything. He left before she could argue. Evelyn stood in the middle of his living room for a long time, feeling untethered. The view outside showed Manhattan glittering like broken glass, millions of lives stacked on top of each other. And somewhere out there, Nolan was probably awake too, thinking about her, planning his next move. The bedroom Adrian had indicated was twice the size of her entire Hell's Kitchen apartment. King bed, slate gray linens, more minimalist art. She sat on the edge of the mattress and pulled out her phone. 12 missed calls, 6 voicemails, all from numbers she didn't recognize. She listened to the first one. Nolan's voice, soft and wounded. Ev, please, just talk to me. I don't understand why you're doing this. We can work through anything, you know that. I love you, just call me back. The second one, less soft. You're being childish. This silent treatment is cruel. You're hurting me, and I don't think you even care. The third one, angry now. Who are you with? Is there someone else? Is that what this is about? You owe me an explanation, Evelyn. You owe me that much. She deleted them all without listening to the rest. Sleep should have been impossible, but the bed was comfortable in a way that felt almost aggressive, and her body was so exhausted from months of adrenaline that it simply gave up. She fell asleep still dressed, phone clutched in one hand, and didn't dream. When she woke up, pale morning light was filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, and someone was moving around in the kitchen. Evelyn sat up fast, heart immediately racing before she remembered where she was. Adrian's penthouse, safe, temporary. She found him standing at the counter with a French press and 2 mugs, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked exactly as composed as he had at midnight. Coffee? He offered. You don't sleep either? Not much. He poured, slid a mug across the marble. Your apartment's ready. I'll take you over after breakfast. I'm not hungry. You need to eat anyway. He opened the refrigerator, started pulling out eggs, vegetables, bread. When's the last time you had a full meal? Evelyn couldn't actually remember. I eat? Eating and surviving aren't the same thing. He cracked eggs into a bowl with the kind of casual competence that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times. Sit. I don't take orders well. I noticed. Adrian glanced at her, something that might have been amusement flickering across his face. Consider it a strong suggestion. She sat, watched him cook, which felt surreal. This man who'd somehow inserted himself into her disaster of a life, who knew everything about her but remained completely opaque, was making her breakfast in his stupidly expensive kitchen. Why are you doing this? She asked. I told you. No, the real reason. Not the philosophical bullshit about pragmatism and problems. Evelyn wrapped both hands around the coffee mug. Nobody does this without a reason. Adrian was quiet for a moment, focused on the pan. Then, I had a sister once, Sophia. She got involved with the wrong man. Charming, successful, seemed perfect. By the time the rest of us realized what was happening, she was completely isolated. He'd cut her off from everyone, convinced her she was crazy, that she needed him. What happened? She tried to leave. He killed her. Adrian's voice stayed even, but something in his shoulders had gone rigid. Made it look like suicide. The police bought it because he was that convincing. Her death was ruled self-inflicted, and he walked away clean. Evelyn's throat closed. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was 12 years ago. He plated the eggs, brought them to the counter. But I learned something from it. The system doesn't save people like Sophia. It processes them, files them, moves on. So I built something outside the system, a way to help people who need the kind of protection the law won't provide. By becoming a criminal, by becoming effective. Adrian met her gaze directly. I can't bring Sophia back, but I can make sure women like her, like you, don't end up in graves because some man decided ownership was the same as love. They ate in silence after that. The food was good, probably better than good, but Evelyn barely tasted it. She was thinking about Sophia, about Nolan, about the thin line between escape and tragedy. The new apartment was in a building 3 blocks from Adrian's, all glass and steel, and security features that probably cost more than most people's cars. The doorman nodded at Adrian like they were old friends. The elevator required a key card. The hallway had cameras every 20 feet. "This is excessive," Evelyn said. "This is necessary." Adrian unlocked the door to 18F and stepped aside. The apartment was beautiful. Open floor plan, exposed brick, furniture that looked lived in but expensive. Kitchen with actual counter space. Windows that overlooked the river. Nothing like the cramped, dingy place she'd left behind. "It's too much. It's yours for as long as you need it." Adrian moved to the kitchen counter, where her boxes were already stacked. Rents handled, utilities, internet, security, all taken care of. "Your only job is to stay safe and let me do mine." Evelyn walked to the window, pressed her palm against the glass. "I can't afford this." "I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" "That you stop fighting me on basic safety measures." Adrian's reflection appeared in the glass behind her. "I know this feels like giving up control, but control is what Nolan uses against you. He controls where you go, how you feel, whether you're safe. This," he gestured at the apartment, "is taking that control back." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she didn't need saving, but the truth was she'd been drowning for months and he'd thrown her a rope, and she was tired of pretending she didn't need it. "Okay," she said quietly. "Good." Adrian checked his watch. "I have meetings today, but someone will be nearby. Michael, you'll meet him. He's my head of security. If you need anything, call him. If there's an emergency, call me." "What counts as an emergency?" "Anything that feels wrong." He handed her a new phone, sleek and unfamiliar. "This is secure. Encrypted. Nolan can't track it. Your old number's been disconnected, but I had it forwarded here in case someone legitimate tries to reach you." Evelyn took the phone, turned it over in her hands. "You think of everything." "I try." Adrian moved toward the door, paused. "There's one more thing. I'm having someone look into Nolan's finances, his connections, his patterns. If we're going to stop him permanently, I need to understand what leverage he has and where he's vulnerable." "He works in private equity, has family money. I don't think he's vulnerable." "Everyone's vulnerable. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point." Adrian's expression was unreadable. "Trust me." After he left, Evelyn spent an hour unpacking boxes in silence. Her books looked strange on the new shelves. Her clothes felt wrong in the expensive closet. Everything was too clean, too safe, too far removed from the reality she'd been living in. Her new phone buzzed. A text from a number labeled simply Michael. "Hi, Ms. Hart. I'm downstairs if you need anything. Coffee run, groceries, questions about the building." "I'm here." She texted back, "Thank you." Then she sat on the couch and stared at the wall, feeling unmoored. The routine came slowly. Adrian had been right about one thing. She slept better here. Whether it was the security or the exhaustion finally catching up, she managed 5 hours straight the first night, then 6, then 7. Her body started remembering what rest felt like. She worked from the apartment, took calls with Carol, translated contracts and technical manuals and pharmaceutical documents. The work was tedious but grounding, proof she still had skills, still had value beyond being Nolan's target. Michael turned out to be a man in his 40s with kind eyes and the build of someone who'd spent time in the military. He brought her coffee twice a day without being asked, always knocked before entering, never stayed longer than necessary. "You were a soldier," Evelyn said on the third day, when he delivered her afternoon coffee. "Marines, 2 tours." Michael set the cup down carefully. "Mr. Vale finds a lot of us. Gives us work that matters." "Does he always help women running from bad situations?" "Sometimes. He also helps journalists who pissed off the wrong people, witnesses who need to disappear, whistleblowers who made powerful enemies." Michael moved toward the door. "He's good at what he does. Trust that." Adrian himself was mostly absent. He'd text occasionally, short, practical messages about security updates or schedule changes. Twice he called to ask questions about Nolan's habits, his friends, his work. Evelyn answered as best she could, trying to remember details she'd spent months trying to forget. A week in, he showed up at her door at 9 p.m. with Thai food and a laptop. "I found something," he said without preamble. Evelyn let him in, watched as he set up the laptop on her coffee table. "What kind of something?" "Nolan's finances are interesting. He makes good money, but he spends more than he makes. A lot more." Adrian pulled up spreadsheets, bank statements, credit card records. He's been funding his lifestyle with loans from some questionable sources. How questionable? The kind that don't accept "I'll pay you back eventually" as a payment plan. Adrian scrolled through transaction histories. He owes money to the Rossetti family. Evelyn's stomach dropped. As in the mob? As in one of New York's more prominent organized crime families? Yes. Adrian's tone was matter-of-fact. They specialize in private loans, real estate, some legitimate businesses as cover. Nolan borrowed $500,000 3 years ago to cover some bad investments. He's been paying the interest, barely, but the principal is untouched. Why are you telling me this? Because it changes things. Adrian closed the laptop, looked at her directly. Nolan's not just obsessed with you. He's also desperate. Men who owe the Rossettis don't have a lot of options, which means he's more dangerous than I initially thought. How is that even possible? He was already... Evelyn couldn't finish the sentence. Stalking you, yes. But now he's backed into a corner financially, which makes him unpredictable. People do stupid, violent things when they're desperate. Adrian leaned back against the couch. We need to accelerate the timeline. What timeline? The one where we neutralize him as a threat. Evelyn's pulse quickened. What does that mean? It means I'm going to have a conversation with Nolan. Make it clear that pursuing you carries consequences he can't afford. He won't listen. I've tried. You tried reasoning with him. I'm not going to reason. Adrian's voice dropped into something colder. I'm going to make him understand that you're protected, and that protection comes from people he should be afraid of. You're going to threaten him. I'm going to educate him about reality. There's a difference. Evelyn stood up, paced to the window. Outside, the city pulsed with light and life, indifferent to the small dramas playing out in apartments like hers. What if it makes things worse? It won't. You can't know that. I can. Adrian rose, moved to stand beside her. I've done this before, Evelyn. Men like Nolan respond to power. Right now, he thinks he has it. I'm going to correct that assumption. She turned to look at him. Up close, in the soft light of her apartment, he looked less like a businessman and more like something carved from stone. Immovable, certain. What if he comes after you instead? Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Surprise, maybe, that she'd thought to worry about him. Let him try. The conversation with Nolan happened 3 days later, though Evelyn didn't witness it. Adrian simply texted her one afternoon. It's done. She called him immediately. What did you do? Had a productive conversation. His voice was calm, unbothered. Nolan understands the situation now. Adrian, what did you do? A pause. I explained that you're under my protection, that any further contact, messages, calls, packages, surveillance, will be treated as a direct threat to my interests, and that threatening my interests is expensive. Did you hurt him? I didn't touch him. Didn't need to. Adrian sounded almost amused. Sometimes the threat of violence is more effective than violence itself. He's not going to just stop because you told him to. He will if he's smart, and if he's not smart, well, then we move to Plan B. Evelyn didn't ask what Plan B was. Wasn't sure she wanted to know. For 4 days, nothing happened. No calls, no messages, no mysterious packages. It felt like holding her breath underwater, waiting to see if her lungs would give out before she reached the surface. On the 5th day, Adrian showed up at her apartment unannounced. Get dressed, he said. Something nice. We're going out. Evelyn looked up from her laptop, confused. Where? A charity gala. High society nonsense, overpriced wine, people pretending to care about causes while networking. He leaned against her doorframe. You're coming as my guest. Why would I? Because Nolan will be there. Adrian's gaze was steady. His firm sponsors the event every year. He'll be there with colleagues, putting on his respectable face, and I want him to see you with me. Want him to understand exactly who you're connected to now. That's insane. That's strategic. Adrian pushed off the doorframe. You've been hiding for months. I'm asking you to stop hiding. Stand next to me in a room full of powerful people and show Nolan that you're not afraid anymore. I am afraid. Then fake it. His voice softened slightly. You don't have to be brave, Evelyn. You just have to show up. I'll handle the rest. She wanted to refuse, wanted to stay in her safe apartment with her secure locks and her carefully controlled environment. But Adrian was right. Hiding hadn't saved her. Running hadn't saved her. Maybe it was time to try something else. What do I wear? She asked. Adrian smiled. Actually smiled, and it transformed his entire face. I'll have something sent over. The dress arrived 2 hours later. Deep emerald green, elegant without being flashy, fitted in ways that suggested it had been tailored specifically for her measurements, which was impossible, except Adrian seemed to make impossible things happen routinely. She put it on, stared at herself in the mirror, and barely recognized the woman looking back. When had she last dressed up? Looked like someone who belonged in rooms with chandeliers and champagne? The car arrived at 7. Adrian was already inside, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her first car. He looked at her for a long moment when she slid into the seat beside him. You look ready, he said. I look terrified. Same thing sometimes. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Club, all marble and old money, and the kind of opulence that felt designed to make regular people uncomfortable. Adrian moved through it like he owned the place, one hand light on Evelyn's lower back, guiding her through crowds of people who smiled at him with varying degrees of warmth and calculation. Who are all these people? She murmured. Money, mostly. Some power. A few who have both. Adrian nodded at a woman in diamonds who waved at him. Don't worry about names. Just smile and stay close. They made it 15 minutes before Evelyn saw him. Nolan was across the room, talking to a group of men in expensive suits, laughing at something someone said. He looked exactly the same as he always had. Handsome in a conventional way, charming. The kind of man mothers loved and women trusted right up until they realized their mistake. Her breath caught. Adrian felt it, glanced down at her. You okay? He's here. I know. That's the point. Adrian's hand tightened slightly on her back. Breathe. You're safe. He can't touch you here. As if summoned by their attention, Nolan looked up. His gaze found hers across the crowded room, and for a second his expression went completely blank. Then he saw Adrian beside her, saw Adrian's hand on her back, and something dark flickered across his face. He started walking toward them. Adrian, I've got you. Adrian turned to face Nolan's approach, positioning himself slightly in front of Evelyn. Just let me talk. Nolan stopped 3 feet away, his smile fixed and terrible. Evelyn, didn't expect to see you here. Nolan? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. His gaze shifted to Adrian, assessing. And you are? Adrian Vale. He didn't offer his hand. I believe we spoke recently. Understanding dawned in Nolan's eyes, followed by anger. You're the one who threatened me. I clarified your options. There's a difference. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Nolan's voice dropped, went cold. Evelyn is my concern, not yours. Whatever she's told you is irrelevant. Adrian cut him off smoothly. What's relevant is that she's under my protection now, which means any contact with her goes through me, and I don't approve contact. Nolan laughed, sharp and humorless. This is ridiculous. Ev, what the hell are you doing with this guy? Don't talk to her. Adrian's tone didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, became threatening without moving at all. You're done talking to her, done texting, calling, sending packages, done watching her, done existing in her life in any capacity. That's not a request. And if I don't comply... Nolan stepped closer, drawing attention from people nearby. What are you going to do? Hurt me? I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Adrian's smile was cold as winter. You owe the Rossettis $500,000. Vincenzo Rossetti doesn't like when people can't pay, but I happen to know Vincenzo. We've done business, and if I mention to him that you are causing problems for someone under my protection, well, that debt of yours might suddenly become very pressing. Nolan's face went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? Adrian pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts, held it up. Vincenzo Rossetti's name was right there. Want me to call him? We can settle this right now. For the first time since Evelyn had known him, Nolan looked genuinely afraid. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Adrian put his phone away. Walk away, Nolan. Forget about Evelyn. Move on with your life. Because if you don't, the next conversation won't be with me. It'll be with people who don't believe in second chances. Nolan looked at Evelyn one last time, something desperate and furious in his expression. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Evelyn realized she was shaking. Adrian guided her toward a quieter corner, away from curious eyes. You did well. I didn't do anything. You stood there, that's enough. He caught a waiter, got her champagne. Drink this. She drank, the bubbles harsh against her throat. Did you really mean that? About the Rossettis? Every word. Adrian watched the crowd, making sure Nolan stayed gone. Vincenzo and I have an understanding. I don't interfere in his business. He doesn't interfere in mine. But if I asked him to accelerate Nolan's debt collection, he'd do it. That would destroy Nolan's life. Yes. Adrian looked at her directly. Is that a problem? Evelyn thought about the messages, the stalking, the fear that had consumed her for months. Thought about the snow globe and the photographs and the constant surveillance. Thought about what Nolan had taken from her, her peace, her safety, her ability to exist without terror. No, she said finally. It's not a problem. Adrian nodded, something like approval in his expression. Good. Then let's finish this evening and go home. They stayed another hour, making appearances, letting people see them together. Adrian introduced her to a few key people, politicians, business owners, someone who ran a major news network. Evelyn smiled and nodded and let herself be swept along in his wake. As they were leaving, she caught sight of Nolan one last time, standing alone near the bar, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. She met his gaze for 3 seconds, then turned away. Let him watch. She was done being afraid. In the car ride back, Adrian was quiet. Evelyn stared out the window, processing everything that had happened. Thank you, she said finally. For what? For making me go, for standing there with me, for... She gestured vaguely. All of it. You don't need to thank me for basic decency. That wasn't basic decency. That was... Evelyn turned to look at him. You went to war for me tonight, against someone you barely know anything about. Why? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Because you deserved someone in your corner, and because I'm tired of men like Nolan thinking they can own people. The car pulled up to her building. Adrian walked her to her door, waited while she unlocked it. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow, we start planning what comes next. What comes next? Making sure Nolan's threat is permanently neutralized, one way or another. He stepped back. Good night, Evelyn. She watched him walk away, then closed the door and leaned against it. Her hands were still shaking slightly, adrenaline still coursing through her system. But underneath the fear was something else, something that felt almost like hope. For the first time in longer than she could remember, the future didn't look like an endless series of looking over her shoulder. It looked like possibility. She pulled out her phone, looked at Adrian's number, and sent him a text. Thank you, really. His response came 30 seconds later. Sleep well. You're safe. And for once, she actually believed it. Sleep didn't come easy despite Adrian's assurance. Evelyn lay in the dark, replaying Nolan's face when he'd seen her with Adrian. That flash of rage barely concealed beneath his polished surface. She'd seen that expression before, in the early days when she'd tried to have lunch with a coworker or mentioned running into an old friend. The expression that said she'd committed a betrayal simply by existing outside his control. Her phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Unknown number. You think you're safe with him? You don't know what you've gotten yourself into. He's worse than you can imagine. Come back before it's too late. She stared at the message for a full minute, then forwarded it to Adrian and blocked the number. His response came immediately, like he'd been awake too. I see it. Get some rest. We'll handle this in the morning. But morning came with complications neither of them expected. Evelyn woke to pounding on her door at 7 a.m. Not knocking, actual pounding, aggressive and insistent. She grabbed the baseball bat she still kept by the bed, approached the door carefully. Miss Hart, it's Michael. Open up, please. Now. She unlocked the door. Michael pushed inside, already on his phone, gesturing for her to move away from the windows. What's happening? Get dressed. Something comfortable. Nothing you can't move in. Michael was scanning the apartment, checking sight lines. Mr. Vale's on his way. There's been a development. What kind of development? The kind where we need to relocate you. Now. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Is it Nolan? Get dressed, Michael repeated, moving to her bedroom to grab a bag. 2 minutes. She threw on jeans and a sweater, shoved her feet into sneakers. By the time she emerged, Adrian was coming through the door, dressed down in dark clothes, his usual composure cracked by something that looked almost like anger. What happened? Evelyn demanded. Adrian's jaw was tight. Nolan made a mistake, a big one. He pulled out his phone, showed her a series of photographs. Her building, her apartment window. Time stamped from 3 a.m., taken from across the street. Nolan had been there, watching, despite everything Adrian had said at the gala. He's escalating, Adrian said, which means the conversation didn't work. So we're moving to plan B. Which is what? Getting you somewhere he can't find you while I deal with the Nolan problem permanently. Adrian looked at Michael. The Hudson safe house ready? Prepped and staffed. I can have her there in 40 minutes. No. Evelyn stepped back. I'm not running again. I'm tired of running. This isn't running. It's strategic repositioning. Adrian moved closer, his voice dropping. Nolan just proved he's willing to ignore threats, which means he's either stupid or desperate enough not to care about consequences. Either way, you're not safe here. I wasn't safe anywhere. That's the whole point. Evelyn's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed level. You said I needed to stop hiding, that I needed to stand up and show him I wasn't afraid. Now you want me to disappear again? I want you alive. Adrian's expression was harder than she'd ever seen it. This isn't about courage or making statements. This is about the fact that Nolan is unraveling, and desperate men do unpredictable things. Then let me help. I know him better than anyone. Which is exactly why you need to be somewhere secure while I handle this. Adrian glanced at Michael. Get her packed. Don't talk about me like I'm not here. Evelyn's voice rose. You don't get to make decisions for me. I've had enough of that to last a lifetime. Something shifted in Adrian's face. You're right. I apologize. He took a breath, visibly collecting himself. But I need you to understand. If something happens to you because I didn't take adequate precautions, that's on me. And I don't lose people. Not anymore. The reference to his sister hung in the air between them. Evelyn softened slightly. I'm not Sophia. And you're not responsible for saving me from every possible threat. Maybe not, but I'm responsible for the threats I can control. Adrian pulled up another image on his phone, a text exchange he'd intercepted somehow. Nolan talking to someone named Marcus, discussing teaching her a lesson and making sure she understands. The words made her skin crawl. Fine, she said quietly. How long? 48 hours, maybe less if I can accelerate things. Adrian nodded to Michael. Stay with her. Full security detail, no exceptions. The safe house turned out to be a renovated warehouse in Red Hook, surrounded by industrial buildings and water. Inside it was surprisingly comfortable, exposed brick, modern furniture, windows that showed the harbor. But the reinforced door and security cameras made its real purpose clear. Michael introduced her to the rest of the team. 2 other men, both former military, both with the same quiet competence Michael had. They were polite, professional, and made it very clear that she wasn't leaving without explicit permission. This is a prison, Evelyn said, staring out at the water. It's a fortress, Michael corrected. There's a difference. Is there? He considered that. A prison keeps you from leaving. This keeps threats from getting in. You're free to move around, use anything here, call whoever you want on the secure line. You just can't leave until Mr. Vale gives the all clear. Evelyn spent the first day pacing, anxious and restless. She tried to work but couldn't focus. Tried to read, but the words blurred together. Finally, she called Adrian. Where are you? She asked when he answered. Handling things. How's the safe house? Like a very nice cage. She moved to the window. What are you doing exactly? Having conversations with people who have influence over Nolan's situation. Adrian's voice was measured, giving away nothing. The Rossettis, for one. Some colleagues in Nolan's firm. A few strategic contacts. You're ruining his life. I'm making it very difficult for him to continue his current course of action. There's a difference. You keep saying that. I'm not sure I believe you anymore. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Do you want me to stop? Did she? Evelyn thought about the fear, the stalking, the way Nolan had systematically dismantled her sense of safety. Thought about the messages, the photographs, the snow globe. Thought about 3 a.m. surveillance photos. No, she said. I want him to leave me alone, whatever that takes. Then trust me to do what needs doing. After he hung up, Evelyn sat in the growing darkness and wondered when she'd become the kind of person who was okay with destroying someone else, even someone who'd tried to destroy her first. The second day at the safe house, she woke to Michael knocking on her door. You've got a visitor. What? Who? Says her name's Carol. Your supervisor? Mr. Vale cleared her. She's downstairs. Evelyn threw on clothes and practically ran down. Carol was standing in the main room, looking around with barely concealed surprise. So this is where you disappeared to, Carol said. Nice setup. How did you find me? I didn't. Your friend Adrian called me, said you were dealing with some security issues and might appreciate familiar company. Carol set down her bag. Also said I should bring work if I wanted to keep you from climbing the walls. Despite everything, Evelyn felt something in her chest loosen. You didn't have to come. Yeah, I did. Carol pulled out her laptop. You've been dodgy for months, kid. Figured you'd tell me when you were ready. But when some very intense man calls and says you're in protective custody, I figured maybe you could use someone who isn't armed and tactical. They worked side by side for 3 hours, Carol asking questions about translations and offering gossip about office politics. Normal things. Things that reminded Evelyn she had a life beyond Nolan's obsession. Can I ask what happened? Carol said finally. You don't have to tell me, but if you want to, Evelyn told her. Not everything, but the shape of it. The controlling relationship, the escalation, the stalking, the fact that she'd been trying to disappear for months. Carol listened without interrupting. When Evelyn finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I had something similar, Carol said. 20 years ago, different city. Guy I dated in college couldn't accept it was over. Followed me to 3 different states before I finally, She paused. Before someone convinced him to stop. How did they convince him? Thoroughly. Carol met her eyes. Sometimes the only way to deal with obsession is to make the cost of continuing higher than the obsession itself. Your Adrian seems to understand that. He's not my Adrian. Honey, a man doesn't set up this level of protection for someone he's indifferent to. Carol gestured at the safe house, the security, all of it. Whatever you two are or aren't, he's invested. Evelyn didn't know how to respond to that, so she changed the subject. Carol left at sunset, promising to come back tomorrow with more work and takeout. After she was gone, Michael appeared with dinner, Thai food, the same kind Adrian had brought to her apartment what felt like a lifetime ago. Mr. Vale's orders, Michael said. Figured you'd be tired of whatever we've been feeding you. Is he always like this? Like what? Attentive, controlling, I can't tell which. Michael considered that while unpacking the food. He's protective. Sometimes that looks like control, but it's not the same thing. Control is about power over someone. Protection is about keeping threats away. Mr. Vale does the second one. You trust him. With my life. He pulled me out of a bad situation when no one else would. Gave me work that mattered. Treated me like I was worth something when I felt pretty worthless. Michael looked at her directly. Whatever he's doing for you, it's because he sees value in keeping you safe. Not because he wants to own you. After Michael left, Evelyn ate the Thai food and thought about the difference between protection and control. About Nolan, who'd wrapped his obsession in language of love and care. About Adrian, who'd given her safety, but also choices. Her phone rang. Adrian. I need you to come back to the city tomorrow, he said without preamble. There's something you need to see. What kind of something? The kind that involves Nolan and the Rossettis, and a resolution to this situation. Adrian's voice was tight. Michael will bring you to my office at noon. Dress appropriately. Appropriately for what? For ending this. He hung up before she could ask more questions. The drive back to Manhattan the next morning was tense. Michael was quiet, focused on the road and the mirrors. Evelyn watched the city approach, familiar and foreign at the same time. Adrian's office was in a building she hadn't been to before, all steel and glass in the financial district. The elevator required a key card. The hallway on the 20th floor was empty except for cameras. Inside, the office looked like Adrian, minimalist, expensive, designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city sprawling below, a conference table that could seat 12. And Adrian, standing by the window, turned to face her when she entered. "You look worried," he said. "You told me we're ending this. That sounds ominous." "It's not. It's practical." Adrian gestured to the conference table where several folders were laid out. Nolan's employers received some interesting information yesterday about his financial situation. The loans, the debt, the fact that he's been using company resources to fund his personal obsession with tracking you. Evelyn moved closer, saw documents with Nolan's name, bank statements, email records. "Where did you get these?" "I have people who are very good at finding things." Adrian opened one folder. "His firm is deciding whether to terminate him. The Rossettis are deciding whether to call in his debt immediately. And Nolan is deciding whether continuing to pursue you is worth losing everything. You're giving him a choice." "I'm giving him an exit. Stop now, face professional consequences, work out a payment plan with the Rossettis, and walk away. Or continue and face significantly worse outcomes." Evelyn sat down heavily. "What happens if he doesn't take the exit?" Adrian's expression went cold. "Then I stop offering exits." Before she could respond, the office door opened. Michael stepped in, followed by two men in expensive suits. One was older, silver-haired, with the kind of face that suggested he'd seen everything and been unimpressed by most of it. The other was younger, harder, with scars on his knuckles. "Evelyn, this is Vincenzo Rossetti and his associate Marco." Adrian made the introduction calmly. "They're here because Nolan's debt is partly their concern." Evelyn's heart was racing. "You brought the mob to your office." "I brought interested parties to a negotiation." Adrian looked at Vincenzo. "Ms. Hart is the person Nolan Cross has been harassing. She's under my protection, which I believe I made clear." Vincenzo studied her with dark, calculating eyes. "The girl Cross can't let go of. I've heard about you." "I didn't ask to be anyone's obsession," Evelyn said, finding her voice. "They never do." Vincenzo sat down, uninvited, and Marco took position by the door. "Mr. Vale has proposed something interesting. He pays off Cross's debt to us. All of it, immediately, in exchange for us making it very clear to Cross that his behavior needs to stop, permanently." Evelyn looked at Adrian. "You're paying off his debt? That's $500,000. Small price for a permanent solution," Adrian said. "But why would you—" "Because Vincenzo's enforcement methods are effective. And because once the debt is paid, Nolan loses his leverage, his job prospects decline significantly, and his ability to fund stalking decreases to nearly zero." Adrian leaned against his desk. "It's comprehensive." Vincenzo smiled, and it wasn't warm. "Mr. Vale is thorough. I respect that. So yes, we have a deal. Cross's debt is transferred to Mr. Vale. We have a conversation with Cross about his future choices, and everyone walks away satisfied." "Except Nolan," Evelyn said quietly. "Except the man who made your life hell for months," Adrian corrected. "This isn't about fairness. It's about ending the threat." Marco spoke for the first time, voice like gravel. "Where's Cross now?" Adrian checked his phone. "My people have him under surveillance. He's been staying at a hotel in Midtown since his firm started asking questions. Hasn't gone to work in 3 days." "Good. Makes it easier." Vincenzo stood. "We'll handle our end today. By tonight, Cross will understand the situation very clearly. Mr. Vale, the payment?" Adrian pulled out his phone, made a transfer right there. Vincenzo's phone buzzed confirmation. "Pleasure doing business with you," Vincenzo said. He looked at Evelyn. "You're lucky. Mr. Vale doesn't usually involve himself this directly in personal matters. Whatever you are to him, it matters." Then they left, Marco closing the door quietly behind them. Evelyn and Adrian stood in silence for a long moment. "You just paid $500,000 to mobsters to get them to threaten my ex-boyfriend," Evelyn said slowly. "Yes. That's insane. That's effective." Adrian moved to pour 2 glasses of water, handed her one. "By tomorrow, Nolan will have lost his job, his financial backing, and any illusion that pursuing you is worth the cost. The Rossettis will make it clear that further contact with you will result in consequences he can't afford, and you'll be free." "At what cost to you?" $500,000. I've spent more on less important things." "That's not what I meant." Evelyn set down the glass. What does it cost you to be this involved? To go this far for someone you barely know? Adrian was quiet, looking out the window at the city. You remind me of her, Sophia. The way you're fighting to survive instead of just giving up. The way you're angry about what's been done to you instead of accepting it. He turned to face her. I couldn't save her, but I can save you, so the cost is irrelevant. Evelyn felt something crack in her chest. I'm not your second chance at saving your sister. I know that. Do you? Because this feels like... She gestured at everything. Like you're trying to rewrite history. Maybe I am. Adrian's voice was quiet. Does that make the protection less real? She didn't have an answer for that. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the message made her blood run cold. You're making a mistake. He's using you. When this is over, you'll see what he really is. But by then, it'll be too late. She showed Adrian. He read it, jaw tightening. That's Nolan's pattern. Trying to isolate you, make you doubt the people helping you. He deleted the message. Ignore it. What if he's right? What if I don't know what I've gotten into? Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then leave. Right now. Walk out, go back to your apartment, live your life. I'll still handle Nolan, still make sure you're safe, but you don't have to be here for any of it. It was the same choice he'd given her at the beginning, the same option to walk away. Evelyn thought about the past weeks, the safety she'd felt in his apartment, the way he'd stood beside her at the gala, the protection he'd built around her. Thought about Carol's words, that he was invested, that this mattered to him. Thought about the fact that for the first time in months, she'd slept through the night, had eaten full meals, had started to believe that maybe the fear didn't have to be permanent. I'm staying, she said. You're sure? No. But I'm tired of running, and you're the first person who's made Nolan actually afraid. So whatever this is, whatever you are, I'm choosing it. Adrian nodded slowly. Then there's one more thing you should know. What? The Rossettis are going to find Nolan tonight. They're going to have a conversation with him. It won't be pleasant. Adrian's gaze was steady. I need you to be okay with that, because once it starts, I can't call it back. Evelyn thought about the surveillance photos, the messages, the fear that had ruled her life. Thought about Nolan's face at the gala, that rage barely contained. I'm okay with it, she said. You might not be after. People think they want justice or revenge until they see what it actually looks like. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. Evelyn met his eyes. Do it. Adrian pulled out his phone, sent a single text. Then he set it down and looked at her. It's done. By morning, this will be over. They spent the next few hours in his office, not talking much. Adrian worked on his laptop while Evelyn pretended to read a book she couldn't focus on. The sun set over Manhattan, painting the windows gold, then red, then dark. At 9 p.m., Adrian's phone rang. He answered, listened, said, understood, and hung up. They found him, he told Evelyn. It's happening now. What are they going to do? Make it very clear that continuing to pursue you will result in permanent consequences. Probably break a few things to emphasize the point. Maybe hurt him enough that he remembers this conversation every time he thinks about defying it. Evelyn's stomach turned, but she didn't ask him to stop it. An hour later, another call. Adrian's expression didn't change as he listened. Is he alive? Pause. Good. Make sure he understands the terms. Another pause. No, that's enough. Let him go. He hung up, looked at Evelyn. It's done. Nolan's been very clearly informed that any contact with you, direct, indirect, through third parties, anything, will result in his debt being called in immediately and enforcement being significantly less gentle next time. The Rossettis also made it clear that I have their backing, which in their world means you're completely off limits. Did they hurt him badly? Badly enough. Adrian's voice was flat. He'll recover, but he'll remember. Evelyn stood up, moved to the window. The city looked different from this height. Smaller, more manageable. Like something she could actually exist in without constantly looking over her shoulder. I should feel guilty, she said, or horrified, or something. But you don't. No, I feel... She paused, trying to find the word. Free. Is that wrong? It's human. Adrian came to stand beside her. You've been terrorized for months. Feeling relief that it's over isn't wrong. Her phone buzzed one last time. She almost didn't check it, but something made her look. It was from Nolan's number, just 3 words. I'm sorry. Goodbye. Then nothing else. Evelyn stared at the message for a long time. Then she blocked the number and put her phone away. Thank you, she said to Adrian. You don't need to. Yes, I do. She turned to face him. You did something for me that no one else could, or would. You made me safe, so thank you. Adrian looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You're welcome. They stood there in the quiet office, the city spread out below them, and for the first time since Boston, Evelyn felt like she could breathe all the way down. The silence after Nolan's final message felt strange. Not peaceful exactly, but empty in a way Evelyn hadn't expected. Like the absence of constant fear had left a vacuum she didn't know how to fill. Adrian drove her back to the Tribeca apartment himself that night, the city streaming past the windows in blurs of light. Neither of them spoke much. What was there to say? It was over. The threat that had consumed her life for months had been neutralized by a man she'd known for barely 3 weeks. You should rest, Adrian said when they reached her building. Tomorrow will be easier. Will it? He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his expression softened. Give it time. Your body's been in survival mode for so long it doesn't know how to stand down yet, but it will. Evelyn nodded, climbed out of the car, paused with her hand on the door. What happens now? With us, I mean. Do you just disappear? Mission accomplished? Problem solved? Is that what you want? I don't know what I want. The honesty felt raw. I don't know what any of this is. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest later. But sleep was impossible. Evelyn lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through everything that had happened. The gala, the safe house, Vincenzo Rossetti sitting in Adrian's office like they were discussing stock portfolios instead of violence. The fact that somewhere in the city, Nolan was hurting, scared, finally understanding what it felt like to be hunted. She should feel something about that. Guilt, maybe? Satisfaction. Something. Instead, she just felt numb. At 3 a.m., she gave up, got dressed, and walked out into her living room. Stopped short when she saw Adrian sitting on her couch in the dark. Jesus Christ, Fa! Her hand flew to her chest. How did you get in here? I never left. Told Michael to wait in the car. Adrian was still in his clothes from earlier, tie loosened, looking more tired than she'd ever seen him. Couldn't shake the feeling you shouldn't be alone tonight. So you broke into my apartment? I have a key. You're in my building, remember? He gestured to the chair across from him. Couldn't sleep either? Evelyn sat, drew her knees up to her chest. Feels weird, like I'm waiting for something bad to happen, but it already did. Or didn't, I don't know. That's normal. Trauma doesn't just switch off because the threat's gone. Adrian's voice was quiet in the darkness. It takes time to convince yourself you're actually safe. How long did it take you, after Sophia? I'm still working on it. He leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. 12 years, and I still check exit routes everywhere I go. Still have trouble trusting people. Still build my life around making sure I can protect the things that matter. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's better than the alternative. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the city hummed with its endless noise. Sirens, traffic, the occasional shout from the street below. Can I ask you something? Evelyn said finally. And will you actually answer honestly? Depends on the question. Why me? Really? Not the stuff about Sophia or seeing patterns. The real reason you got involved. Adrian was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because you were terrified, but you were still fighting. Most people in your situation either give up or break. But you were standing on that street corner, running from Marcus, and even scared out of your mind, you were strategic about it. Taking random turns, checking reflections, doing everything you could to stay ahead. He looked at her. That kind of survival instinct is rare, worth protecting. So I'm a project, someone worth saving. No, you're someone who is already saving herself. I just gave you better tools. Evelyn pulled a blanket around her shoulders. What happens when you decide I don't need the tools anymore? Do you just move on to the next person? Is that what you think this is? I don't know what this is. She met his eyes. You've paid off my stalker's mob debt. set me up in an apartment I can't afford, inserted yourself into every part of my life. And I don't even know if you drink coffee or what you do when you're not orchestrating elaborate protection schemes. Adrian almost smiled. I drink espresso, double shot, no sugar. And when I'm not working, I read military history and watch documentaries about architecture. That's the most boring answer I've ever heard. You asked for honest. He stood up, moved to the window. I'm not good at this. At normal. At relationships or whatever this is supposed to be. I'm good at problems and solutions and making sure people stay safe. That's the shape my life takes. And I'm a problem you solved. You were never a problem. Adrian turned to face her. You were someone who deserved better than what you got. And yes, helping you also helped me deal with my own guilt about Sophia. But that doesn't make this fake or calculated. It just makes it complicated. Evelyn stood, walked over to where he was standing. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the tension he carried in his shoulders. You're allowed to be tired, to not have all the answers. That's not really an option in my line of work. What exactly is your line of work? Because I'm pretty sure security consulting doesn't usually involve the mob. Adrian's laugh was short, humorless. I solve problems that exist in the spaces between legal and illegal. Corporate espionage, witness protection outside official channels, making inconvenient people disappear, not dead, just gone. Sometimes I work with criminals. Sometimes I work against them. Mostly I work in the gray area where the rules don't quite apply. That's terrifying. Yes. And you're good at it. Very. No false modesty, just fact. Which is why Nolan never stood a chance. Men like him are amateurs playing at control. I'm a professional. Evelyn should walk away. Should recognize this for what it was. A dangerous man who operated outside normal boundaries, who'd just proven he could destroy someone's life with a few phone calls and a wire transfer. But instead she asked, "What now? With us?" That depends on what you want. I want to not be a project anymore. I want to know if this is real or if you're just going to disappear once you're sure I'm okay. Adrian reached out slowly, giving her time to move away. When she didn't, he touched her face, gentle and certain. I don't know how to do this. The normal version where people date and meet each other's friends and pretend they're not carrying damage. But I know I don't want to disappear. Even though I'm complicated and broken and probably going to have nightmares about Nolan for months? Even though. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You're not broken, Evelyn. You're someone who survived something terrible and came out fighting. That's not damage. That's strength. She kissed him. Didn't plan it, didn't think about it. Just closed the distance between them and kissed him like she'd wanted to since the night at the gala when he'd stood between her and Nolan like a human shield. Adrian responded immediately, pulling her closer, his other hand sliding into her hair. The kiss was hungry and a little desperate, both of them trying to communicate things they didn't have words for. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight. Not here. At my place. I don't want you alone. That's probably a bad idea. Probably. He didn't let go. But I'm asking anyway. They ended up back at his penthouse, the same space where this had all started. But it felt different now. Less like a fortress and more like a place where someone actually lived. Adrian made coffee, double espresso for him, something elaborate with steamed milk for her that she didn't remember telling him she liked, but apparently he'd noticed anyway. They sat on his couch, watching the sun come up over Manhattan, not talking, just existing in the same space. I'm going to have to go back to normal life eventually, Evelyn said around dawn. Work, routine, all of it. Figure out what that looks like now. I know. And you can't just show up every time I get nervous or scared. I can try. Adrian set down his coffee. But you're right. This only works if you can function without me. Otherwise, it's just a different kind of cage. So what do? We take it slow. You go back to work. I go back to my regular clients. We see each other when we want to, not because you need protection. We figure out if this is real or just trauma bonding. Evelyn leaned her head on his shoulder. You're smarter than you look. I look pretty smart. Debatable. The week that followed was strange. Evelyn went back to the translation firm, sat in Carol's office, and explained that her situation had been handled without going into details. Carol looked at her for a long moment, then just nodded. You look different, Carol said. Less hunted. I feel different. Still jumpy, but different. That's good. You've got color in your face again. Carol handed her a stack of new contracts. Welcome back. We've got a pharmaceutical merger that needs translating from Japanese and a lawsuit in Frankfurt that's all German legalese. Think you can handle it? Evelyn could. The work felt good, grounding. Proof that she had skills and value beyond surviving. Adrian texted occasionally but didn't hover. Short messages. How was your day? And thinking about you. And once, unexpectedly, a photo of a building under construction with the caption, "Thought you'd appreciate the brutalist architecture." She laughed at that one, sent back a picture of her coffee with still terrible at making lattes. They had dinner twice that week. Real dates, the kind where they talked about normal things, books, travel, opinions on whether Chicago or New York had better pizza. Adrian was different outside of crisis mode. Still controlled, still careful, but there were moments where he'd laugh at something she said and his whole face would change. "You're not what I expected," Evelyn said during their second dinner. "What did you expect? Someone colder, more detached. You do this whole intimidating businessman thing, but then you remember how I take my coffee and send me pictures of buildings?" Adrian considered that. The intimidating businessman thing is armor. Keeps people from looking too close. But you've already seen past it, so there's no point maintaining it with you. Is that a compliment? It's a fact. On Friday, a week after the Rossettis had their conversation with Nolan, Evelyn got an email. From Nolan's personal account, time-stamped at 2 a.m. "Evelyn, I know I'm not supposed to contact you. I'm not trying to start anything. I just need you to know that I'm leaving New York. Taking a job in Seattle, far away from here, far from you. What they did to me. What he arranged, I get it now. I pushed too hard, wanted something I had no right to want. I'm sorry for all of it. For making you afraid, for not listening when you said no. For being the kind of man who thought love justified control. I'm working on it. Therapy? Actually dealing with my shit instead of projecting it onto you. This isn't me asking for forgiveness or another chance. Just letting you know that you won't hear from me again. You deserve better than what I gave you. I hope you find it." Evelyn read it 3 times, looking for manipulation, for hidden threats. Found none. Just exhaustion and what might have been actual remorse. She forwarded it to Adrian. His response came immediately. "Do you want me to verify he's actually leaving?" "No, I believe him. And even if I don't, I believe in what the Rossettis did to make him understand." "You okay?" She thought about it. Was she okay? A week ago, her stalker was outside her apartment taking surveillance photos. Now he was apologizing and moving across the country. The whiplash was disorienting. I think so. It's just weird. Closure feels anticlimactic. Closure usually does. That night, Adrian showed up at her door with takeout and a bottle of wine. "Thought you might want company," he said. They ate sitting on her floor, backs against the couch, passing the wine bottle between them because Evelyn didn't own proper wine glasses yet. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "About what the Rossettis did to Nolan." "You can ask. I might not answer." "Did they hurt him badly?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. "They broke 2 of his fingers and a rib. Made it very clear that the next time would be worse. Vincenzo has a gift for memorable threats." Evelyn absorbed that. "I should feel guilty." "But you don't." "No. Is that terrible?" "It's human." Adrian took a drink, passed her the bottle. "You didn't ask for violence. You asked for safety. What it took to achieve that safety isn't your fault." That's a convenient rationalization. It's also true. He looked at her. You're allowed to be relieved that the person terrorizing you is gone. You're allowed to not care what it cost him to make that happen. What did it cost you? Adrian didn't pretend not to understand. $500,000 to the Rossettis. About $200,000 in additional resources, surveillance, security, Michael's team. Call it $750,000 all in. Evelyn nearly dropped the wine bottle. "You spent that much on me?" "I've spent more on less important things." "Adrian, that's insane. I can't ever pay you back. I don't even make that much in 10 years. Good thing I'm not asking you to pay me back." He took the bottle, set it aside. "Money is a tool. I used it to solve a problem, that's all." "That's not all, She couldn't find words big enough. Why would you do that? Because you mattered enough to make it worth it. Simple, direct, no hedging. Evelyn felt something crack open in her chest. I don't know how to handle this. You, all of it. Then don't handle it. Just exist in it for a while. See what happens. What if what happens is I get too comfortable? Start to depend on you the way I depended on Nolan? Adrian's expression hardened slightly. We're not the same. I don't want to control you or own you or make you smaller so I feel bigger. I want you safe and whole and able to walk away if that's what you need. And if I don't want to walk away, then don't. He reached for her hand, laced their fingers together. But make that choice because you want to be here, not because you're scared to be alone. They ended up falling asleep on her floor, still dressed, the wine bottle empty between them. Evelyn woke up at 3 a.m. with Adrian's jacket draped over her like a blanket and his arm around her waist. She should move, should wake him up, suggest he go home. Instead, she just settled back against him and let herself feel safe. The second week brought unexpected complications. Adrian was in meetings most of the time, dealing with a client situation that he described vaguely as complicated and probably going to end badly for someone. Evelyn tried not to ask questions about his work, but curiosity was hard to suppress. Do you ever regret it? She asked one night over dinner at his place. The gray area work, the moral ambiguity, all of it? Adrian cut his steak with precision. Sometimes, usually around 3 a.m. when I can't sleep, and I'm thinking about all the choices that led me here. And then I remember that the alternative is doing nothing, letting people like Nolan win because the system's too slow or too bureaucratic or too unwilling to help. And I decide I'd rather live with moral ambiguity than with regret about standing by. That's very philosophical for someone who threatened my ex with mob violence. I contain multitudes. He almost smiled. What about you? Regrets? About you? No. About how I got here, constantly. Evelyn pushed food around her plate. I keep thinking about the choices I made with Nolan, how I didn't see the red flags, or I saw them and ignored them because I wanted to believe he was who he pretended to be. That's not your fault. Isn't it, though? I stayed long after I should have left. I made excuses for him. Stop. Adrian's voice was firm but not harsh. Abuse works by making you doubt your own judgment. By the time you recognized what was happening, he'd already spent months undermining your ability to trust yourself. That's not a character flaw. That's what makes it abuse. Evelyn looked at him. You've thought about this a lot. I've watched it happen enough times to understand the pattern. He reached across the table, took her hand. You survived. That's what matters. Everything else is just noise. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while Evelyn was working. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Hart? A woman's voice, professional and unfamiliar. This is Detective Sarah Chen with NYPD. I'm calling about Nolan Cross. Evelyn's stomach dropped. What about him? He filed a police report claiming he was assaulted by individuals hired by you. Made some serious allegations about intimidation and extortion. I'm going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions. I didn't hire anyone to do anything. That's what we need to discuss. Can you come in tomorrow morning, say 10 a.m.? Evelyn hung up and immediately called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. Nolan went to the police, she said without preamble. They want to question me. About what specifically? About hiring people to assault him. Adrian, they're going to ask about you, about the Rossettis. Breathe. His voice was calm, controlled. This was predictable. Nolan's trying to regain some control by going official. It won't work. How can you be sure? Because I'm very good at covering tracks, and because the Rossettis don't leave evidence, and because I have a lawyer who's even better at making problems disappear than I am. He paused. Don't go to the station alone. I'll have someone meet you there. Who? Catherine Reeves, best defense attorney in the city, happens to owe me a favor. She'll walk you through everything. Adrian, I can't afford— You're not paying. I am. This is my mess as much as yours. Catherine Reeves turned out to be a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the kind of presence that suggested she'd eaten prosecutors for breakfast her entire career. She met Evelyn outside the police station the next morning, shook her hand once, and said, Don't say anything beyond yes, no, and I don't recall. Let me do the talking. The interview was exactly as unpleasant as Evelyn expected. Detective Chen was polite but persistent, asking about her relationship with Adrian, whether she'd ever discussed Nolan with people who might take action, whether she knew anything about a meeting between Nolan and members of the Rossetti crime family. Catherine shut down every line of questioning with surgical precision. My client has no knowledge of any assault. She's been living under protection due to Mr. Cross's documented harassment, which I believe you'll find includes multiple restraining order requests and a substantial paper trail of stalking behavior. We're aware of the history, Chen said, but the injuries Mr. Cross sustained were significant. Someone did that to him. Perhaps you should investigate Mr. Cross's business dealings. I understand he has debts to various entities that might be interested in collection. Catherine's smile was sharp. But that has nothing to do with my client, who's been focused on rebuilding her life after months of terror at Mr. Cross's hands. The interview ended after 40 minutes, with Chen looking frustrated and Evelyn feeling like she'd just survived a different kind of interrogation. Outside, Catherine turned to her. They have nothing. Cross's story has holes. No evidence links you to anything, and his credibility is shot given his history. This will go nowhere. How can you be sure? Because I've been doing this for 30 years, and I know when a case is dead on arrival. Catherine handed her a card. If they contact you again, call me immediately. Don't talk to them without me present. Evelyn watched her leave, then sat on a bench outside the station and tried to process what had just happened. Adrian found her there 20 minutes later. You okay? He asked, sitting down beside her. I just lied to the police. Or let your lawyer lie for me. I'm not sure which. You told them you didn't know anything about an assault. That's true. You weren't there, didn't witness it, didn't participate in planning it. That's semantics. That's how the law works. Adrian looked at her. Are you having second thoughts? Evelyn thought about it, really thought about it. No, I'm just realizing how deep this goes. How far you were willing to go. How far I'm willing to let you go. And I'm still here, so I guess that's my answer. They sat in silence for a while, watching people come and go from the police station. Regular people with regular problems, probably nothing like the complicated mess she'd waded into. Nolan's going to keep trying, Adrian said finally. This won't be the last time he pushes back. I know, but he won't win. Because I'm better at this than he is, and because you're stronger than he ever gave you credit for. Adrian stood, offered his hand. Come on, let's get out of here. That night, back at her apartment, Evelyn finally let herself cry. Not about Nolan or the police or any of it, just about the sheer exhaustion of carrying fear for so long, and the strange relief of finally setting it down. Adrian held her through it, didn't try to fix it or make it better, just let her fall apart in a way she hadn't allowed herself to in months. I'm sorry, she said when the tears finally stopped. This is human, he finished. This is human, and you're allowed to feel it. She looked up at him, this man who'd inserted himself into her disaster of a life and somehow made it survivable. Thank you. For what? For being here. For not leaving when it got complicated. For... She gestured vaguely at everything. All of it. Adrian kissed her forehead, gentle and certain. You don't have to thank me for basic decency. It's not basic decency. It's extraordinary. And I know that even if you don't. They fell asleep tangled together on her couch, the TV playing something neither of them watched, the city humming its endless song outside the windows. And for the first time in longer than Evelyn could remember, sleep came easy and stayed through the night. The police investigation died quietly over the next 2 weeks, just like Catherine had predicted. Detective Chen called once more to say they were closing the case due to insufficient evidence and conflicting witness statements. Nolan's injuries were real, but there was nothing tying them to Evelyn or anyone she knew. The Rossettis had done their work cleanly. It's over, Evelyn told Adrian when she got the call. They were having breakfast at a diner near her apartment, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since yesterday. The investigation, yes. But how are you? Adrian set down his mug, watching her carefully. I don't know yet. She poked at her eggs. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Nolan to try something else, or for the police to come back, or for, I don't know, something. That's going to take time. Your body's been in fight or flight for months. It doesn't just switch off because the threat's gone. How long did it take you to feel safe again after Sophia? Adrian was quiet for a moment. I'm still not sure I do. Safe, I mean. I just got better at managing the feeling that I'm not. That's bleak. That's honest. He reached across the table, covered her hand with his. But you're not me. You're allowed to heal differently. Evelyn turned her hand over, laced her fingers through his. What if I can't? What if I'm just broken now? Then you're broken and still worth everything. His voice was firm. But I don't think you are. I think you're recovering, which looks a lot like being broken, but isn't the same thing. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the tightness in her chest would eventually ease, that she'd stop checking over her shoulder every 30 seconds, that sleep would come without the nightmares of Nolan's face, or his hands, or his voice saying her name like a claim of ownership. But belief was hard when trauma lived in your bones. The call from Marcus Hale came 3 days later, completely unexpected. Ms. Hart? His voice was hesitant, nothing like the confident man she'd seen on the subway platform months ago. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to talk to you. Evelyn's first instinct was to hang up. Her second was to call Adrian. Instead, she said, How did you get this number? From Nolan, before he left for Seattle. Marcus paused. I'm calling because I owe you an apology. A real one. I don't want your apology. I know, but I'm giving it anyway. He took a breath. I helped him, Ms. Hart. When he was trying to find you, when he was obsessing over you, I made excuses for him, told myself he was just heartbroken, that you'd overreacted, that he deserved another chance. I was wrong about all of it. Evelyn sat down heavily on her couch. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw what they did to him. What Mr. Vale arranged. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. And I realized that's what it took to make him stop. Not reason, not friendship, not the law, just fear. And that made me look at my own role in all this. How I enabled him, made it easier for him to stalk you, told him where you were that day on the subway. You told him I was in New York. Yes, and I'm sorry, I thought... He stopped. It doesn't matter what I thought. I was wrong, and you paid the price for my loyalty to the wrong person. Evelyn didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to scream at him, to tell him exactly what his help had cost her in sleepless nights and constant terror. Part of her was just tired. Is that it? She asked finally. No. I also wanted you to know that Nolan's really gone. Took the job in Seattle, already moved, and he's getting help. Therapy, medication, actually dealing with the control issues instead of pretending they don't exist. It won't fix what he did to you. But maybe it'll stop him from doing it to someone else. Good for him. The words came out bitter. You don't have to forgive him, or me. I just thought you deserved to know. Marcus was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, I hope you're okay. I hope you found safety, and I hope someday you can sleep without being afraid. He hung up before she could respond. Evelyn sat there holding the phone, emotions churning too fast to name. When Adrian arrived an hour later, she'd texted him right after the call ended. She was still sitting in the same spot. Marcus called, she said. I know. Michael's been monitoring your line. We heard the whole thing. Adrian sat beside her. How are you feeling? Like I'm supposed to feel something about Nolan getting therapy and moving away and supposedly changing, but I don't. I just feel empty. That's allowed. Is it? Shouldn't I be happy he's getting help? Relieved it's really over? Maybe eventually. Right now you're allowed to just feel nothing. Adrian pulled her against his side. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel better, some days worse, some days just numb. All of it's valid. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the city moved through its afternoon rhythm. People heading home from work, kids yelling on the street, someone's music bleeding through the walls. I want to go somewhere, Evelyn said suddenly. Away from New York, away from all of this, just for a few days. Adrian looked at her. Where? I don't care. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can breathe without feeling like the walls are closing in. Give me an hour. By that evening, they were in a car heading north, the city falling away behind them. Adrian had made calls, arranged things with the efficiency that seemed built into him. Michael drove while Adrian sat in the back with Evelyn, watching the landscape change from urban sprawl to suburbs to actual trees. "Where are we going?" she asked. "A place I own upstate, near the Catskills, quiet, private, no one around for miles. You own a lot of property. Real estate is a good investment, also useful when you need places people can't find you." The house turned out to be less a house and more a compound. Modern architecture tucked into the woods, all glass and steel and careful design. Inside it was warm despite the minimalism, with a fireplace that actually worked, and a kitchen that looked like someone cooked in it regularly. "You come here often?" Evelyn asked, exploring the space. "Sometimes, when the city gets too loud or I need to think." Adrian was building a fire, competent and methodical. "It's peaceful here. Different kind of quiet than the penthouse." They spent the evening in comfortable silence, Evelyn curled up on the couch with a book she couldn't focus on while Adrian worked on his laptop. Around midnight, she gave up pretending to read. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. What happens with us when this is really over? When I'm healed or functional or whatever you want to call it? Do you just move on to the next person who needs saving?" Adrian closed his laptop, gave her his full attention. "Is that what you think this is? Me saving you until you're fixed and then leaving? I don't know what to think. You've built your whole life around protection and solving problems. What happens when I'm not a problem anymore? You were never a problem, Evelyn. You were someone worth protecting. There's a difference." He moved to sit beside her. "And when you're healed, really healed, I'm hoping you'll choose to stay anyway. Not because you need me, but because you want to." "That's a lot of pressure." "Then don't think of it as pressure. Think of it as possibility." Adrian took her hand. "I'm not good at this, at being open, at letting people in. But you've seen parts of me I don't show anyone, and you're still here. That matters. What if I leave anyway? What if I decide this is all too complicated and I need something normal? Then I'll be disappointed. But I'll let you go." His voice was quiet but certain. "I'm not Nolan. I won't chase you or try to force you to stay. You get to choose, always." Evelyn looked at him, this complicated, dangerous man who'd inserted himself into her life and somehow made it survivable. "I'm not choosing anything tonight. I'm too tired and too confused, but I'm not leaving yet either." That's enough. They spent 3 days in the Catskills. 3 days of sleeping late and eating meals at random times and walking through the woods without checking over her shoulder every 30 seconds. 3 days of starting to remember what it felt like to exist without fear as a constant companion. On the second night, they sat on the deck watching stars that were actually visible without city light pollution. Evelyn had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and wine she was drinking too fast. "Tell me about Sophia," she said. "Really tell me, not the sanitized version." Adrian was quiet for a long time. "She was younger than me by 5 years. Brilliant, funny, terrible at taking advice. She wanted to be a photographer, had this way of seeing beauty in things other people overlooked." He paused. "The man she got involved with was an art dealer, sophisticated, wealthy, seemed perfect. By the time we realized he was isolating her, cutting her off from family, making her question her own sanity, it was too late." "How did it happen?" "She tried to leave, packed a bag, called me for help. I was 3 hours away, told her to go to a hotel, and I'd meet her there." Adrian's voice went flat. "He found her first, convinced her to come home, talk it through. That night he staged it to look like she'd hung herself, left a note that he'd probably written, made it look like she'd been depressed for months." Evelyn reached for his hand. "I'm sorry. The police bought it. Her friends bought it. Even our parents half believed it because he was that convincing. But I knew." Adrian's grip tightened. "I knew she wouldn't have done that, so I started digging, found the pattern, other girlfriends, similar stories, always ending with them isolated and broken, but never enough evidence to prove anything." "What did you do?" "Made his life difficult. Used connections I'd built in my security work to make sure everyone knew what he was. Destroyed his reputation, his business, his relationships. He disappeared eventually, moved to Europe. I heard he died in a car accident 5 years ago." Adrian's smile was cold. "I didn't mourn. And that's when you started doing this full time, helping people like her, like you." He looked at her. Women who are strong enough to fight but need someone in their corner who's willing to fight dirty. The system failed Sophia. I make sure it doesn't fail people like you. That's a lot of weight to carry. Better than doing nothing. They sat in silence after that, the stars bright overhead, the woods dark and quiet around them. Evelyn thought about Sophia, about all the women who'd needed someone like Adrian and didn't have him, about how thin the line was between her and tragedy. I'm glad you found me, she said quietly. That day on the street, I'm glad you didn't just walk past. So am I. The call came on their last morning at the house. Adrian's phone buzzing insistently, Michael's name on the screen. Adrian answered, listened, his expression going carefully blank. Understood. We'll head back now. He hung up, looked at Evelyn. Nolan's been in an accident. Her stomach dropped. What kind of accident? Car crash in Seattle. He's alive but injured. Michael's monitoring the situation to make sure it's actually an accident and not something the Rossettis decided to follow up on. Would they do that? After everything? Unlikely. They got paid, delivered their message, have no reason to escalate. But I want to be sure. Adrian was already packing, efficient and focused. We should get back. If this turns into something, I want to be where I can control it. The drive back to the city was tense. Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that they were somehow responsible, even though logically she knew a car accident 3,000 miles away had nothing to do with them. By the time they reached Manhattan, Michael had more information. Nolan had been driving drunk, ran a red light, T-boned another car. The other driver had minor injuries. Nolan had a concussion, broken arm, and according to the hospital's preliminary tox screen, a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. He's self-destructing, Adrian said, reading through Michael's report. This isn't the Rossettis, this is him spiraling. Should I feel bad about that? Do you? Evelyn thought about it honestly. No, I feel detached, like it's happening to someone I used to know but don't anymore. That's healthy, actually. You've separated yourself from his choices. Adrian looked at her. Whatever Nolan's going through now, it's not your responsibility to fix or feel guilty about. Even though what you did pushed him to this, what I did was stop him from hurting you. What he does with his life after that is his choice. Adrian's voice was firm. You don't owe him sympathy or concern or anything else. He lost that right when he started stalking you. Detective Chen called later that afternoon. Nolan had mentioned Evelyn's name to the Seattle police, claiming she was part of why he'd been drinking. They'd checked, found the closed case in New York, decided it wasn't relevant to a DUI charge. Just wanted to give you a heads up, Chen said, in case he tries to contact you again. He won't, Evelyn said with more confidence than she felt. Good. For what it's worth, Ms. Hart, I hope you're doing okay. Case might be closed, but I could tell what you were going through. Glad you got clear of it. After she hung up, Evelyn realized something had shifted. Chen's words, glad you got clear of it, felt true in a way they hadn't even a week ago. She had gotten clear, not just physically, but emotionally. Nolan was becoming a story she'd tell someday instead of a present threat. That evening, she and Adrian had dinner at his place. Actual cooking, both of them working in the kitchen together, something domestic and normal that felt almost foreign after weeks of crisis. I think I'm ready to move out of the Tribeca apartment, Evelyn said while chopping vegetables. Adrian looked up from the stove. Because you feel unsafe there, or because you want something that's actually yours? The second one. That place was part of the emergency, the protection. I need something I chose, not something you set up for me. That makes sense. He didn't look hurt, just thoughtful. Do you want help looking, or would you rather do it yourself? Somewhere in between? I'll look, but maybe you can, I don't know, tell me if a building has terrible security or is in a neighborhood that's about to get demolished or something. I can do that. Adrian moved the pan off the heat, came over to where she was working. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you for getting to the point where you want your own space again. Are you saying this because you want to get rid of me? I'm saying it because independence is healthy, and I'm glad you're feeling strong enough to want it. He kissed her forehead. But I'd be lying if I said I won't miss having you 3 blocks away. I'm not moving to Boston, just somewhere that feels like mine. She found a place 2 weeks later in the West Village, smaller than the Tribeca apartment, older, with charm that the modern places lacked. A real fireplace, original hardwood floors, windows that overlooked a tree-lined street. The rent was steep but manageable with her salary from the translation firm, and the landlord ran a thorough background check that she actually appreciated this time. Adrian came to see it before she signed the lease, walked through carefully, checked the locks and sight lines in neighboring buildings. "It's good," he said finally. "Ground floor is always riskier, but the bars on the windows are solid. Building has a doorman, security cameras in the lobby, neighborhood safe." He looked at her. "You like it?" "I love it. It feels like somewhere I could actually live, not just survive." "Then take it." Moving in took a week. Carol helped, along with a few co-workers from the firm who'd become friendly once Evelyn stopped being so withdrawn. Adrian sent Michael with a truck for the furniture, then showed up himself with coffee and pastries. "Thought you might need fuel," he said, setting down the box. They worked through the afternoon, unpacking boxes, arguing about where furniture should go, slowly turning the empty apartment into something that looked lived in. By evening, Evelyn was exhausted and happy in a way she hadn't been in longer than she could remember. "Thank you," she told Adrian while they sat on her new couch eating pizza straight from the box. "For everything, not just today, all of it. You've thanked me about 30 times. It's getting repetitive. I mean it, though. You changed my life." "You changed your own life. I just gave you tools." Adrian set down his pizza. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "What do you want? Not tomorrow or next week, but bigger picture. What does your life look like when you're really okay again?" Evelyn thought about it. "I want to wake up without checking my phone for threats. I want to walk down the street without counting exits. I want to trust that when someone says they care about me, it's not code for wanting to control me." She paused. "And I want you to be part of it. If you want to be." "I want to be." "Even though I'm still kind of a mess?" "You're not a mess. You're recovering. There's a difference." Adrian pulled her against his side. "And yes, even though. Especially though, actually." "Why especially?" "Because you're real. No pretense, no performance. You're exactly who you are. Damage and strength and everything in between. That's rare." They spent that first night in her new apartment together, christening the space with takeout and wine, and the kind of conversation that lasted until 3 a.m. Evelyn fell asleep, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope that tomorrow might actually be better than today. The months that followed were quieter. Evelyn settled into her apartment, into her work, into a routine that felt sustainable instead of like constantly holding her breath. She had dinner with Carol weekly, started taking a photography class at the community center, began building a life that was hers instead of something constructed in reaction to fear. Adrian was there but not hovering. They saw each other 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes more when his schedule allowed. He was still Adrian, controlled, careful, operating in gray areas she tried not to think about too hard. But with her, he was also softer. The version of himself he didn't show the world. She met some of his friends, other people who worked in the same murky space between legal and not. All of them smart and dangerous and oddly loyal. They treated her with careful respect, like they understood she mattered to Adrian, and that made her untouchable. "Your people are intense," she told him after a dinner party at his penthouse. "They're necessary." Adrian was cleaning up, methodical as always. "In my line of work, loyalty is currency. You build relationships with people who understand the rules of the game." "And what are the rules?" "Don't betray your own, don't leave loose ends, and protect the things that matter, no matter what it costs." He looked at her. "You're one of the things that matters." That's a lot of pressure. It's just the truth. 6 months after Nolan's car accident, Evelyn got a letter. Actual physical mail forwarded from her old Boston address through a chain she'd set up for exactly this kind of situation. The return address was a treatment facility in Washington state. Inside was a single page, Nolan's handwriting, dated 2 weeks earlier. "Evelyn, I'm writing this from rehab. 90 days in, finally starting to understand how badly I messed up. Not just with you, though, that's part of it. With everything. The drinking, the obsession, the way I turned love into control and convinced myself that was normal. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm not asking to see you or talk to you or have any kind of contact. I'm just trying to do the one thing my therapist says might help both of us. Acknowledge what I did without making excuses. I stalked you. I terrorized you. I made you feel unsafe in your own life. I told myself it was because I loved you, but real love doesn't look like that. Real love doesn't make someone afraid. I'm working on understanding why I am the way I am. Childhood stuff, attachment issues, the way I learned to equate control with security. It doesn't excuse anything, but maybe it explains it. I hope you're okay. I hope you found safety. I hope you're with someone who treats you the way I should have, like you're valuable and whole and allowed to have boundaries. I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. Nolan. Evelyn read it twice, then set it on her kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time. When Adrian came over that evening, she showed it to him. How do you feel? He asked after reading it. Like it's too little, too late, but also like maybe it's something. I don't know. She paced to the window, looked out at the street. Part of me wants to be angry that he thinks a letter fixes anything. Part of me is just tired. Both are valid. What would you do? If it were you? Adrian considered that. Probably nothing. The letter's for him, not you. It's part of his recovery process, making amends or whatever they call it. You don't owe him a response. But what if it helps him to know I got it, that I don't know, that I'm okay? Do you care if it helps him? That was the question, wasn't it? Did she care about Nolan's recovery, his healing, his journey to being a better person? No, she said finally. I don't. I hope he gets better for the sake of whoever he dates next, but I don't owe him my emotional energy anymore. Then don't give it to him. Adrian came to stand beside her. Put the letter away or burn it or frame it as a reminder of what you survived, but don't let it take up space in your head. She ended up keeping it in a drawer, unresponded to. Sometimes she'd remember it was there, feel a flicker of something, not quite guilt, maybe just the ghost of who she used to be, the woman who would have agonized over whether to write back. But that woman was gone. The one who stood in her place was harder, clearer, less willing to shoulder blame that wasn't hers. A year after the night on the street when she'd crashed into Adrian, Evelyn was having coffee with Carol when the older woman asked the question that had probably been building for months. So what are you and Adrian exactly? Because you've been together for a year, but you never call him your boyfriend or partner or anything. Evelyn stirred her coffee, thinking. I don't know what to call it. We're together. We're serious. But traditional labels feel wrong for something this complicated. Complicated how? He's a morally gray security consultant who paid off my stalker's mob debt and possibly has connections to organized crime. I'm a translator who's still working through PTSD from said stalker. We're not exactly a conventional couple. Carol laughed. Honey, there's no such thing as conventional. There's just people trying to make it work however they can. She leaned forward. Do you love him? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Does he love you? He's never said it, but yes, I think so. Then the rest is just details. Carol sat back. You look happy. Happier than I've ever seen you. That's what matters. Evelyn thought about that conversation later that night when Adrian came over with dinner and a bottle of wine he'd been saving for no particular reason. Carol asked what we are today, she said while they were eating. And what did you tell her? That we're complicated, that I don't know what to call this. She looked at him. What would you call it? Adrian set down his fork, gave her his full attention. I'd call it the most important relationship I've had. The one that made me believe I could be something other than what Sophia's death turned me into. Which is what? Someone who only knows how to protect and control. Someone who can't let people in because getting close means risking loss. He reached across the table, took her hand. You changed that. Made me want something beyond just solving problems and keeping people safe. What do you want? You. This. A future where we're both whole and choosing each other because we want to, not because you need protection or I need to save someone. Evelyn felt something in her chest crack open. I love you. I've been trying to figure out when to say it, how to say it, but I do. I love you. I love you too. Adrian's voice was quiet but certain. Have for a while. Just didn't know how to say it without sounding like I was trying to keep you through manipulation. That's not how love works. I'm still learning that. They sat there holding hands across the dinner table, the food going cold, the wine forgotten. Two broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage and somehow built something solid. The final piece came 6 weeks later, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Evelyn's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, old habits dying hard. But something made her pick up. Ms. Hart? This is Amanda Chen from Seattle General Hospital. I'm calling about Nolan Cross. Evelyn's stomach tightened. What about him? I'm his social worker here. He listed you as someone to contact in case of, well, he passed away this morning. I'm very sorry for your loss. The words didn't make sense at first. What happened? Complications from the injuries he sustained in his accident last year. Internal bleeding that wasn't caught initially. By the time we realized, it was too late. Amanda's voice was gentle, professional. He'd completed his rehab program, was doing better. This was unexpected. After she hung up, Evelyn sat very still. Nolan was dead. The man who'd terrorized her, controlled her, made her feel unsafe in her own skin, gone. Just like that. She called Adrian. He's dead, she said when he answered. Nolan? Complications from the car accident. He died this morning. Silence. Then, how are you feeling? I don't know. I thought I'd feel, I don't know, relief, guilt, something, but I just feel empty. That's normal. Give it time. The feelings will come when they're ready. A pause. Do you want me to come over? Yes. He was there in 20 minutes. They sat on her couch in silence for a long time, Evelyn processing something she couldn't quite name. I spent so long being afraid of him, she said finally, and now he's just gone. It feels anticlimactic. Death usually does. We expect closure or resolution or some kind of meaning, but mostly it's just absence. Do you think he changed before he died? Does it matter? Evelyn thought about the letter, the apology, the 90 days in rehab. Maybe. I'd like to think he understood what he did was wrong, that he was trying to be better. Then believe that. It costs you nothing and might give this some kind of meaning. What do you believe? Adrian looked at her. I believe he hurt you badly and you survived it. I believe you're stronger now than you were before. Not because of what he did, but because of how you fought back. And I believe whatever he was or wasn't at the end, you're free of him now, completely. She started crying then, not sad tears exactly, but something like release. Adrian held her through it, solid and certain, the man who'd appeared in her life like an answer to a question she hadn't known how to ask. The funeral was in Boston. Evelyn didn't go. Sent flowers instead, a simple arrangement with no card, her way of acknowledging that someone had died, even if that someone had made her life hell. Marcus called a week later. I wasn't sure if you'd heard, he said. I heard. I just wanted to say he really was trying, at the end. He talked about you sometimes, about how badly he'd messed up, about how he hoped you were okay. That's good. Evelyn's voice was neutral. I'm glad he was trying. Are you okay? Really? Yeah, I am. Finally. After she hung up, she realized it was true. The fear that had lived in her chest for so long was gone, replaced by something lighter. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of it. That night, she and Adrian went to the roof of her building. She'd never been up there before, but he'd somehow gotten the key. They sat on the edge with their legs dangling over, the city spread out below them, and talked about everything and nothing. I've been thinking, Evelyn said, about the future, what I want it to look like. And I want to keep doing translation work, but maybe branch out into teaching, help other people learn languages, find connection through words. She paused. I want to travel, really travel, not just run away. See places because they're beautiful, not because I'm hiding. That sounds good. And I want you in it, not as my protector or my savior or anything like that, just as you. Adrian looked at her, and for once his expression was completely open. I want that too. Want to figure out who I am when I'm not in crisis mode. Want to build something with you that's about more than just survival. Think we can do it? Build something normal? I think normal's overrated. But we can build something real. He took her hand. Something that's ours. They sat there as the sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. The city that had been her prison and then her refuge and now was just home. The place where she'd learned that running wasn't the same as escaping, that safety wasn't just about locks and distance. that love could look like someone standing between you and danger without demanding anything in return. Evelyn thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, frightened, hunted, convinced she'd never feel safe again. Thought about all the choices that had led her here, good and bad, hers and others. Thought about Nolan, dead now, his story over while hers kept going. And she realized something she should have understood months ago. Healing wasn't about erasing what had happened. It was about learning to carry it differently, about acknowledging the damage without letting it define every choice, every relationship, every moment forward. She'd spent so long being afraid that she'd forgotten what it felt like to want things, to have plans that stretched beyond just making it through the day, to look at someone and think about years instead of just survival. "I'm happy," she said, surprised by the truth of it. "Right now, in this moment, I'm actually happy." Adrian squeezed her hand. "Good. You deserve to be. So do you." "I'm getting there." He looked at the city, at the life they'd built in its complicated spaces. "We both are." The truth was, there were no neat endings. No moment where everything suddenly became perfect, and all the trauma disappeared like it had never happened. Evelyn still had bad days, still sometimes woke up from nightmares, still caught herself checking over her shoulder in crowded places. But there were also good days. Days where she laughed without thinking about what might come next. Days where she felt safe enough to be vulnerable, strong enough to ask for what she needed, whole enough to give love without losing herself. And maybe that was the real lesson, that survival wasn't about becoming unbreakable. It was about learning to hold the broken pieces together until they started to heal. About finding people who would help you carry the weight instead of adding to it. About choosing, every day, to keep moving forward, even when forward was scary and uncertain and nothing like the life you'd imagined. She'd spent months learning to disappear. Now she was learning to exist, to take up space, to believe that she had the right to safety and love and a future that wasn't defined by someone else's obsession. Adrian had given her tools, but she'd done the work. Rebuilt herself piece by piece into someone stronger, not because the trauma had made her strong, but because she'd refused to let it make her small. And that, she thought, watching the city lights come on one by one, was worth everything it had cost to get here. "Ready to go back down?" Adrian asked. Evelyn looked at the sky, at the city, at the man beside her who'd changed everything. "Yeah, let's go home." Home. Not a hiding place, not a fortress, just a space she'd chosen, filled with things that mattered, shared with someone who saw her as whole instead of broken. She'd come to New York running from danger. She was staying because she'd found something worth running toward. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, that felt like enough.